I'm here to take you through just a point of view and a piece of work that sort of delivers on a proposition that we believe in around making brands useful. It's titled Do, Don't Say. And I think that largely comes from people day to day are just constantly interrupted with things, messages from brands, new downloads that we want them to interact with. So they've got so much to manage. And we think from a brand perspective, if you want to exist in people's world, you need to provide some level of value to them. Exchange something if you want to get some of their time and live into their day-to-day behaviors. Something that we talk about a lot at RGA is just this idea of fitting in and standing out. And the idea of fitting in is just understanding people's behavior, understanding where they interface with a certain piece of content, and working within that and providing a role to play in there that's sort of like disruption, but in a value way. And if you get that right, then you stand out from your competition. You're not slapping people around the face saying like, hey, listen to my message. I want you to sort of like interface with me. You're giving them something that is something natural based around the things they're talking about or doing or the content they're creating and sharing. And frequently, I think you're seeing that a lot of these types of things are actually sort of data-driven. They're data-led innovations. A piece of work that was great last year in the Cyber Lions was done for Honda. And it was straight after the sort of national disaster in Japan where huge infrastructure damage, no roads were open and so on. But they took the navigational systems in all the cars to identify open roads and everything. And that became a piece of work called Honda Internavi. And that basically helped the country sort of reconnect with each other, identify where loved ones were, how to get from A to B, sort of how to get supplies and so on. And that's the type of thing we're talking about around creating decent sort of branded utilities that fit into someone's life and serve a good purpose for them. Obviously, we've got sort of a couple of things we've done in the past that sort of like make a point, I think, I guess, for how you can do things on the behalf of a brand that really do deliver something for an audience. In 2006, we launched Nike Plus, and I think you saw here the role of data as a motivational vehicle. The idea of understanding how do you actually sort of provide data that helps you understand your performance so you can run harder, better, longer, faster, and so on your own and with other people. And last year, we had the privilege to launch the Fuel Bands. And obviously, Fuel being a new measure, a normalized measure of sporting activity, which allows a footballer, a runner, a baller, and so on to compete against each other in a way they couldn't previously. And Fuel becoming something that allows you to make your activity count. But what I'd like to take you through today is a piece of work we've done for Getty Images, very different to sports, obviously. But something where we sort of prove that this model is something you can apply to multiple different brands, whether they're from the drinks industry, or in this case, stock photography, or sports. And the feed we're sort of proud of. It's been shortlisted for an innovation line, so we've got our fingers crossed, hoping for the best in that. And hopefully you'll see that it's a decent piece of work.
Getty Images is known as the world's largest source of stock media, available for people to search and buy online. But people don't look for media this way anymore. They're used to content coming to them in streams, in real time, wherever they are. So to transform the way people experience Getty Images, we created a utility called The Feed. The Feed identifies topics that are trending on Twitter and listens specifically for words and phrases being used a lot. So we can match the most relevant image with the real-time conversation and automatically publish the perfect picture to Facebook. For example, in September 2012, Real Madrid played Manchester City in the Football Champions League. The feed monitored conversation around the game. Cristiano Ronaldo scored for Real in the last minute and won the match for the Spanish team. The event was trending on Twitter, but this moment caused a spike in activity and provided us with the intelligence to identify the perfect image to publish on our sports Facebook timeline. It was no coincidence that the image sourced by the feed in real time was exactly the same as the one featured on the back pages the next morning. For people, the feed provides relevant streams of content featuring the biggest stories and the most notable moments from the worlds of sports, news, and entertainment as they happen. For brands, a subscription to the feed allows them to automate their social publishing using some of the world's best media. And for Getty Images, their brand now fits into people's everyday lives while also providing them with a new source of revenue. The Feed by Getty Images, a simple innovation that makes a brand relevant again.
Basically, we created this piece of technology that allows you to listen to what people are saying, so not just trending topics. So let's just say like Obama's doing something, it becomes a trending topic. We're not so much interested in that. We're understanding like what's actually being said. Is it about his speech, what he's wearing, who is he with? And we're looking at those specific words and then understanding those, clustering them together, and doing a live image search to understand exactly the image to match that conversation. The reason we're doing that is because Getty, I'm sure a lot of the people here actually sort of have used them in the past or maybe feel obliged to use them now. But they're suffering like from a brand perception sort of challenge in the sense that they're famed for stock photography. Some might say that some of that's a little contrived, some of it's fantastic. But their competition nowadays is the likes of Google. Let's just face it, if we're looking for an image for a presentation or a piece of work, you hammer into Google image search, you find an image of LeBron James to communicate something about performance, it goes into your work. They're not so much front of mind anymore for image search and creation. And so we're looking to create new ideas for them so they can stand out and exist amongst the likes of Flickr, Google, and so on. They also want to increase the awareness of their editorial content. All of you, every day, see this content. Whether you're looking at the back pages of The Guardian or The Telegraph, or reading a news article or a sports article on the BBC or the ESPN, you see their content, but people don't actually realize it's from Getty. And more so, like Getty is this e-commerce destination. People are pushed there. They feel like they need to go there at the end of the process. I've found my image, I now need to go to an art buyer and sort of like get this done legitimately. So they don't fit into your day-to-day world. So we really wanted to put them into sort of where people are consuming these streams of media, and actually by doing that, stand out from their competition. So we started by creating this thing called a feed. The feed was a branded destination that was presented in the format of a feed, just like Instagram or Twitter or anything else, a format where you're used to consuming different types of media. And it started with a very simple idea, where if there's a trending topic, we basically take that, we make a call against an API that basically says, look, LeBron James and the Miami Heat are trending, we go and make a call for that, we pull it back in real time, we present you a feed of that data. Kind of important for them because it means that if you want to consume the world's news or sports or entertainment, you can now just follow the feed and it'll give you a visual sense of what's going on in the world at that moment. But we thought there's actually a bigger opportunity than this that hadn't been done before. And what we really wanted to do is, like I said, actually look at not just the fact of what's trending, because anyone could kind of do that, and it was very relevant, but it's something that's achievable. What we wanted to do is understand if you're talking about, just to stay with basketball, the NBA Finals, who's performing, what are they saying? Is it about a three-point shot, a dunk, an injury, a manager, a player that's sort of like a rookie that's come in, or a veteran who's performing well? We really wanted to understand what's being said so we can match that to image searches. So the idea here was using social listening to power a real-time publishing platform. I'll go through this loosely, but I'm not a tech guy, so I'm not going to sort of like go through sort of nesting diagrams and stuff. But the main thing here was we were sort of, Getty has this curation engine which allows them to say like a great image to not an average image, but a not so great image. And that's a 1, 2, 3 scoring system, which we basically partner with this social listening thing that we created, which does this interrogation of what's being said in Facebook and Twitter and so on. And then we take a look at that, and then we look at the words that are being used over and over and over again. So if it was LeBron James, LeBron James, LeBron James, we utilize that, and we understand whether he's talking about a three-point shot or a drive to the hoop or whatever it might be. And then that is the words that we go and take out, and we provide an image match in real time to communicate basically what's going on. And that's about real-time curation. And this basically means that if you worked for a Procter & Gamble or let's just say a Unilever type of company where you sponsor someone like the NBA, you can go in there, just sort of like enter in a bunch of different keywords for what you want to sort of follow, and you'll get a real-time feed of images that fit into the context of a conversation. And this is what it looks like. It just goes straight into a Facebook news feed. So it's of the moment, as people are talking about this kind of content, basically it's going into a format which how you're used to actually consuming it. And this is a good example of what we're looking for here. You get a story on the right-hand side of what's actually going on real time as a game is in play. This is a play that happened maybe sort of 2 or 3 minutes earlier. There's already a conversation going on about it. People are very interested about this. This is like a moment that needs to be sort of like heroed. And we're pushing an image in real time that fits exactly what's being talked about. So it's a very powerful publishing platform. Some examples to give you a sense of how this works specifically are, we did a test at the beginning of at the end of last year around a Champions League game. And you'll see here, you probably might not do the contrast, there's basically these big spikes of what people are talking about. And that's basically like a goal moment. So that goal moment right then and there, we can just pass that information, grab an image, and publish it straight away. So again, it allows you to sort of exist in that conversation as it happens. And this is the kind of image that comes out of it. It's exactly the goal moment, like 2 minutes after it actually happened on the field. For the Super Bowl, for a social listening piece of technology you've made, with 2 or 3 people that's not industrial grade, this is a nightmare. I mean, you can see the volume of data we're getting in comparison. It's a huge, huge sort of like amount of flow of conversation that we're sort of crunching through. You can see some of these green spikes. The first green spike on the left-hand side was a touchdown moment. A wide receiver got the ball, and you can see this is the image that came straight out off the back of it. So it sort of proves the point that this is not just like the Super Bowl is trending on Twitter. That's no good to us for just sort of flooding people a bunch of images about the game. This is exactly the moment that's being talked about. And a couple of minutes later, we publish an image that's specifically about that moment in time. And that works as a model for whether it's Apple sort of like doing a keynote presentation about iOS 7, or if it's a presidential election, or it's Oprah Winfrey getting some gown for being a wonderful person. It works across all different sort of platforms. And what this has meant, which we think is kind of interesting, is that for Getty, it's a slightly different image for them. Positioning them in the realms of sort of innovation, like creating new ideas for them as a brand, allows them to exist in the world of Wired and Engadget, Gizmodo, TechCrunch, and so on, which is not really their conversation about their work happens these days. Which is a shame, because they have Pulitzer Prize-winning content and so on. But it sort of sinks them straight into sort of where innovation is being discussed and challenged. It gives them a new following because of that. I mean, on this, we've actually got people who are using the feed as a day-to-day mechanism just to follow sports as it happens. It's less about the written narrative and more just about the visual narrative of what's going on. It also, the interesting thing that we didn't necessarily look at the very beginning was that it becomes like an analytics tool in its own right. You think of Google Analytics as a reference point, but this effectively allows them to understand what type of images people are liking the most, in what kind of context. So it allows them to curate content in the future for their photographers to know what types of things to sort of take and what's going to be more popular than not. And it's sort of like a new future. In place of this destination that you're driven to go and sort of buy your stock photography, at the end of the cycle of creativity, we're now at the very forefront in the palm of your hands, and we're blurring the lines between sort of businesses and consumers, because I sort of believe in their world. I'm an agency, I am a customer of theirs. At the same time, I'm a sports fan, I follow politics and a bunch of other stuff, which they have some of the world's best content to communicate about. So it puts them in a very different place to sort of somewhat redefine their future and how people interface with their brand and their content. I think the last thing here, which we find kind of interesting, is that this in its own right starts to become like a new piece of business for them. We work with Unilever, we work on the Rexona brand. Rexona sponsors Lotus Formula One. But brands like that, sometimes they don't have the overhead, they don't have the finances, the ability to put crews on the ground to capture what's going on every race day. But with this, in theory, what you could do is productize this. You could basically say, just like a Spotify or a Netflix, for just a monthly cost, you can subscribe to the feed, and then as a brand, you can just publish of-the-moment content that fits into a conversation. And that's kind of exactly what brands need to and want to be doing, in a very relevant way with great content that actually sort of makes sense and allows you to exist in people's world. So that's the feed. It's a lightning talk, and try to be efficient. Thanks very much.